Testing, testing. Well, hello there. Did everybody get some refreshment, libation, food, something to chomp on? Great. Well, I would love to get started because I really, really love the fact that there are children here, and being a parent, I know that things get a little crazy in the not too distant future in the evening, so why don't we go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is the Reverend Chris Bishop, and I tell you, my worlds are colliding. Seriously. It's so great to be here with you. I've come to love this church and love this community, and I really love your rector. And I want to thank her for so warmly welcoming us and this ministry occasion here, this chance to share this. And I've come to love Phillipstown. Our family loves this place. And so that part of my life is meeting directly with a whole other part of my life that has been so profoundly important, and that is my friends from Iraq. And one of my dearest friends, Sanan, is with us tonight. So I want to frame this for you with a story, just a very brief story about how this sort of came to be and how we're together here and sort of what it might mean. Fundamentally, what you're going to hear tonight, and this whole thing is about the love of God, reaching out over continents and countries and cultures to bring people together and do what I think is the real ultimate purpose of the Christ and our tradition, which is to make the world better for God's children, for everybody. And so the way this all came about is in 2015, I was a rector of a parish in Radnor, Pennsylvania, St. Martin's Church. And one Christmas Eve pageant rehearsal, a parishioner laid on my heart what was happening to the Christians in Iraq. I had no idea, quite frankly, that there were Christians in Iraq at all, to my embarrassment. But he started telling me about some of the oldest continuous Christian communities on the planet, some of the last speaking and worshiping in Aramaic, the language of Jesus, were being run off of their ancestral lands and were huddled in desperate conditions in refugee camps in Erbil. And that it looked like if something wasn't done, that these communities could be extinguished. And that seemed like a really, really bad idea to me. So I was called to go there. I just knew I had to go to find out for myself what was happening and see what our church could do about it. So I didn't know anyone in Iraq. I didn't know anything about Iraq. And I had one contact, and so I went to Erbil in 2015, and I met the most amazing bunch of people who were dealing with this. And two of them in particular were of great import. One was Father Faiz Georges, who is the canon priest at St. George's Episcopal Church in Baghdad. How many people here know there's an Episcopal Church in Baghdad? Some of you, probably the ones who've talked to me, some of you, but I didn't know. So I met Father Georges, Faiz. He can't be here with us tonight. He's sleeping because we have been in Washington for 9 days and Philadelphia at the cathedral and just spent 9 days in New York at the St. Bart's, and we were at the National Cathedral in Washington. So we've really tired these guys out trying to get the message out, because here's what happened. I'll tell you about the meetings, but when I was over in Erbil, the Christians that I met, all of them, the message they said to me is, where is everybody? Does the world know what's happening to us? Does the church know what's happening to us? We're in the nursery of the Christian tradition, and we're absolutely being decimated, and does anybody care? And I said, well, I didn't know you were here, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to tell people. And so this is all part of that story. So, I'm in Erbil, and I meet Father Faiz, and he starts telling me that at St. George's, they're building a school, the first, and as far as I know, the only non-sectarian elementary school for children in Baghdad. Religious, ethnic background makes no difference, and you're going to hear a little bit about St. George's tonight. And so we began working with St. George's, and my little group Stand with Iraqi Christian raised some money, and that's really kind of what helped us get our feet on the ground. But I met someone else in 2015. I went to, again, I didn't know anybody. I was looking for friends, and so I called the local, a large Western Christian mission church there, and I said, you don't know me, I'm an Episcopal priest. He said, what's an Episcopal priest? You know, what's the Episcopal church? I said, well, I've got a little money, but I'm really trying to understand what's happening here, and I need some friends. I'd like to meet some people. He said, well, you need to meet our project director, Sinan. So Sinan and I met, and it was, well, we just clicked, you know, it just happens. We got each other right away, and we started working together right away. I get choked up even thinking about this. So we were able to help buy food for families literally running off the Nineveh plains with only the shirt on their back, had nothing, no food, no nothing. Sinan hooked me up with some people who could help me give that food. And we began to do things. When I got back, I made a film. I had shot a film when I was there, and people began to notice. So we began to work and raise funds and awareness, and we dug wells, and we worked with a school about it. And, you know, what happened was a friendship was formed and a group was formed to try to do something about this catastrophe. So in 2017, ISIS was militarily defeated in Iraq, and Sinan one day said to me, I'm moving back to Baghdad from Erbil. And I said, great, what are you going to do? He said, well, you know, I've got a couple of degrees. He's a very brilliant person. He's engineering, et cetera. I said, yeah, but what do you really want to do? And he said, well, I really love working with Christians. That's what I'd like to keep doing. And I said, well, there's someone you need to meet, Father Faiz Georges at St. George's Church. Sinan had no prior experience with Anglicans or Episcopalians, but went to Baghdad, met Faiz, exactly what I thought would happen. Happened, they hit it off, and what's it been, 7 years you have been Faiz's assistant there. And they have been working together, and so we've been working at St. George's, and Sinan, while working at St. George's, has also been our main operative on the Nineveh Plains. So couldn't do anything that we've done without this person here. And so it is just an honor and a privilege to have you among us. And so would you please welcome my friend Sinan, and we will have time for questions and answers.
Thank you, Chris, for this kind introduction. It really made it easier to me to start, and I will start from where he finished by putting these two logos close to each other. The church, putting these two logos close to each other. The church, St. George Anglican Church logo, but as well as Stand with Iraqi Christian, because that's how the story started with me. And back in between 2015 and 2017, that's how I was introduced to the Anglican and Episcopalian community through Chris Bishop. At the time when I was working with Christians who were driven out of their towns, and they lost all of their belongings, they lost their houses, and they were given only a few hours to leave the village that they used to live in it their entire life, but also it's a land of their ancestors. So back in these years, it was a very tough years for Christians in Iraq. And just to give you a little bit historical view about Christianity in Iraq, Christianity in Iraq has been there since the beginning of Christianity, when one of the apostles, St. Thomas, came to Iraq, evangelized Christians, and traveled through Iraq, Pakistan, Afghanistan to India, and evangelized India as well. And since then, the country used to be a Christian country, and all of those historical ethnic groups, the Assyrians, the Syriac, the Chaldeans, they are the original people of Iraq, turned to Christianity. Over the years, Christians started sharing the country with other religions, including Muslims. And until now, after 2,000 years later, Christians became minorities in the country. Nowadays, there's around 150,000 Christians in Iraq, and that's less than 1%. They form less than 1% of the total population. We had 35 years of political dictatorship of Saddam Hussein until 2003, when the US led an invasion, and that invasion resulted in the fall of that regime in 2003. But in the last 20 years, the church and Christians in general, they had a lot of challenges surviving in the country and surviving Christianity in the country. And that's why, well, I started in 2014 when ISIS attacked, and that was just the beginning of, I was working for, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I was working in the engineering. And after 4 years of working in the engineering field, which is something that I'd loved to do, but I found it, I was looking for something more valuable, something that will last longer, something that will have impact on people's life, not only I'm doing business, which is doing business is great, but personally I was looking for something like that. I feel that that will be, that's compatible with my passion, that's compatible with what I really like to do. And that's why I quit my work in 2014, and I was looking for something to do with those people and the victims of ISIS who were driven out of their cities. And I worked as a project director for a large church up in the north to help those people. And that was when I met Chris. And on the other part of Iraq, which is Baghdad and St. George's, which I joined in 2017, there is a ministry going on for Christians to sustain their life and to sustain the Christianity in the country. And St. George's has been there relatively new, and I was just sharing with one of the parishioners here, I guess. When I say relatively new, people think it's like 5 years, 10 years, but it's like almost 200 years. When the Episcopal and the Anglican mission started coming to Iraq by a representative from Canterbury, and the first Anglican church in Iraq was built in 1922. But the missions and the medical missions and the educational missions started back in the 80s, in the 80s 42 to 80s 45. And that was the starting point, but they stayed as missionaries coming to Iraq until 1922, when the Church of St. George's was built. That building, that's the old building of the church that I am part of, and that church was 12 years after the building, it was destroyed. And that's why a new building was there in 1936, and that church was dedicated for the expats. It was not for Iraqis, because obviously there is no Episcopalian Anglicans in Iraq. Most of the Iraqis, they are either Syriac, Catholic, Orthodox, and other denominations. So, as you can see, this is a baptism service back in 1943. As Iraqis, we can recognize those faces that are not Iraqis. So, they are multi-nationalities, but also like mostly British, because that church was for the diplomats. The church suffered persecution many times since then, until the last persecution happened in 1991, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and the whole world stood against him, including the United Kingdom. He decided to close the embassy, but he also closed the church, because he considered it as part of the embassy and part of the British mission. But after 2003, and in work of the sustainability of Christianity in Iraq, the church worked in presenting healthcare to the surrounding community, worked on having 2 schools, a preschool within the church compound, but also an elementary school that served the variety of the community, regardless religion, ethnicity, or if you need healthcare and you're a patient, you're welcome to come and knock the door of the church. But that was how the church looks like in 2003. It was looted, and over the years it was rebuilt again. Here are some pictures of the congregation at St. George's, and that's part of the ministry that we have been doing in Baghdad to sustain Christianity and helping them to stay there, helping them to live in that country and to keep this fabric of the society. You know, Iraq has variety of communities, variety of religions. We do have only 14 Christian denominations. We have the Muslims, we do have the Yazidis, we have all of those communities. And I think once one of them is missed, it will be it will be something that we will never be able to bring it back. Or even if we are able, it will be very difficult. Because, you know, people, when they get and settle somewhere else, they would never go back to their places unless at least the reason that led for that immigration is gone. So those areas we worked on at St. George's Church, which is spiritual services, clinic that I talked about, educational institutions that receive children from 1 year to 12 years, but also reconciliation and interfaith dialogue, as well as community rebuilding and helping the community how to survive each other, how we must, as a Christian, but also as a human being, accept each other and survive each other. And I'm going to show some pictures from the church. Those pictures have been taken very recently. This one is from last Christmas. That one's like a couple years ago. That's a picture from the clinic where everybody is welcomed. If he's military, if they are Muslim, if anybody, if they come and they are patients, we are ready to offer them medical services. But what I want also to refer to today is what Stand With Iraqi Christian have been doing up in the north, whereas there's a majority of Christian community. And it's all about rebuilding of the community. When ISIS attacked the village of Karakosh and Nineveh Plain, really they destroyed the houses, they burnt the houses. And I had the opportunity to visit the area just 10 days after ISIS was defeated. And one of the early signs that I saw was there was 2 families already went back after 10 days after liberation. Those 2 families, if you go to that area, it was like an area just went out of the World War II. There's no electricity, no water. The infrastructures are damaged. Those families, they were living in one room which was not burnt out of that house, or like part of the house that's not burnt. And they were the military were delivering water to them every other day and filling their tanks without electricity. That was actually a positive sign for the sustainability of Christians. But those people could never stay there unless they have a source of income, unless they can have making their daily living. And having that fact of, you know, like 3 years of war in the area, there is a lot of need to build that economy. To build a building like this, it takes years. But if you want to destroy it, it just takes you a few seconds to destroy it. And that's exactly what happened in 2014. They destroyed the area. And we are still trying to help those people to go back to their normal life. What we did, instead of bringing things and external investments and getting into an experience of try and error, we went and talked to people by hosting a vet day where we brought all of those farmers together, because that area used to be called the food basket of Iraq, which means the variety of the food that we have in Iraq, it comes from Mosul and Nineveh Plain. Then let's meet with those people and see what their needs are. I've heard this many times and from different people. I used to have 20,000 chicken that they were mature and they would be sold in 5 days, and then ISIS attacked just 5 days before they were ready to be sold. I had to leave. I left 20,000 chickens for ISIS. I hope they grilled them. and they couldn't just take anything with them. And that's why we decided to start this initiative of chicken farms as well as sheep farms. This is Jalal, one of the farmers, and those are his family. Well, sometimes according to the Iraqi culture, it's a little bit sensitive to include women within a picture like that. So that's why it's like you can see like it's all men. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. And that's a cultural thing. And as you can see, he has the farm, he has the space. He used to raise sheep, and that's not only his job, but that's his ancestors' job. That has been the family business for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. But he doesn't have the capital to have his sheep in the first round of sheep. We met Jalal 6 years after ISIS, and yet he couldn't maintain even a pair of sheep. He's having some, he's a public servant where he gets a monthly salary from the government, but that salary is barely enough to make a daily living. If he got sick, he cannot afford going to a private hospital. But during the conversation with him, and I had like a 2 hours conversation as a beginning, getting details, he said, if I can have a cattle of like 20, 25, 30 sheep, I can grow that and double that number in just 1 year. In 2 years, that number will be doubled 2 times, which is, if we provide 25, by 2 years, he will have 100. And just imagine how many people would get benefit of that. Not only he, not only his family, but also he's hiring a family to stay at the farm. There is someone who's selling the fodder who will get benefit of that. And all of that is like, we're pushing the economy, we're helping individuals on one side, but on the other side, we are also pushing the economy to go on. So we bought him 25 pairs of chickens, and here's where he started having businesses. And I can remember when I was writing the final statement and the final report of Jalal, because he works for the government, so he has to be at work in the morning. But guess what he told me? He told me every day I go, because I'm an engineer, I have no experience on that, but what I understood is that those sheep need to go early, very early in the morning to eat. So he goes, he fed them, and then bring them back to the place where they stay, and then go to his public servant as a worker. So that's how we have been trying to sustain the Christianity and Christian life. Relatives who immigrated, and it might be easy for him to leave, but he's committed to stay on his land and his ancestor land, and we need to give him one more reason to stay there. This is Rayyan, and the same story. He used to have chicken, not sheep. And as you can see, one of the charities helped him to, that building was burned. There was no roof. So one of the charities helped, they were concentrating on construction, so they helped him on doing the construction and make it ready and providing him with the tools. But he doesn't have chicks. It can stay like this forever unless someone provide a capital for chicks, fodder, medicine, vaccinations, and really some basic needs. Well, we provided, his farm fits up to 7,000 chicks, but we start really not providing the full. We started with 3,000, and then he will be developing that over and over. And here are his chickens. And that farm is actually, this picture is only, it was taken last week in the age of 22nd days. Now they are almost 30 days, and they would be sold in maybe 2 weeks from now. And after he has the profit that make up, similar to what we are doing with the farming, because the farming is larger grants, but within the small businesses, we are helping him to have the basic needs. And then from that, he will develop. Another example of a barber shop. The shop was totally chaotic because of what happened in 2014. We just equipped the shop with some basic things, and then he will start working, making profits, and then develop that businesses again. Making profits, and then develop that businesses again. If we were able to help all of those people and build that economy again, I think Christian would be able to stay in Iraq. I'm mentioning just examples because over the last 7 years, and in cooperation with, so I myself, I work with a US-based charity rather than stand with Iraqi Christian. And over the last 6-7 years, we developed more than 100 businesses like this one. We did over than 25 chicken or sheep farms, and that's all impacting the economy in the area of Christians and helping them to survive. a restaurant. We just equipped that restaurant last February with some basic refrigerators, some tables, some ovens, and that's how, some mixers, and that's how he were able, so the restaurant was already exist, but he needs some more products. So we helped with equipment so the guy can have more products. I think that's another sheep farmer who, the same case, he have the farm, he have everything, but he doesn't have the sheep. And that's the picture before. We went with him, visited the farm, we saw that he has the potential to raise the sheep. He has the space, he owned the land, and then we will need to provide him with those pairs of sheep so he can, from here, take the life and just continue. That's what Stand with the Iraqi Christian has been doing so far. But also, we came across several other things, like digging the well. Sometimes the farm is ready, but there's no source of water. So we dig wells for them. We really try to responsive in a way, so not we have just one-way projects, that's what we do. No, that's not the approaches for us. It's what is the current needs? Well, you need a well. He has the cattle. If we provide cattle, that's unfair. Okay, we do something else for them. But one of the other things that we are dreaming about, and I believe you may mention a little bit more, to have a community center for Christians, and that community center will be a place where people can come and have a vocational training, if that's about sewing, computer and technology, maybe music, maybe like a haircut vocational training, variety of the businesses. Well, we are developing businesses, but then there are other people in the ages of like 20s, 30s, 40s who might be able to work for charities, for companies, just if they have some skills. So that has not been in place yet, but we've been praying, we've been talking about the possibilities of doing that up in the north, and more importantly, to maintain a social space. Christianity used to be in Iraq in 2003, the population was 1.5 million. Nowadays, it's less than 10% of what we used to have in 2003. Everybody lost a family member and someone from the extended family because of immigration. And that's why having a social space for those Christians where they come together, get training, but also socialize. I think that's very important to maintain that fabric of the Christian community up in back there in Iraq. And that's our mission, that's our vision, that's part of my life goal. I mean, I've sometimes people ask, like, everybody is leaving, why you see there are still some people? Why do you think there are still some people staying there? Well, my experience is that, yes, it's true, a lot of people are leaving, but I know people also, they traveled to the West, they went to France, they went to Germany, they lived a few months there, and then they came back. They said, we just felt that this is the right place for us to be, regardless of the situation. Well, the situation in the West is much better than our place. But for us, and this is particular, for us, here is better to stay. So I'm not speaking about those who left, I'm speaking about those who are committed to stay, and there are a large number of them. I think I'm ready to open the space for you for questions, and I'm ready to answer any questions if you have.
I also, while you're thinking of your questions, and please, the best part of this is hearing from you all and questions you have, because listening to Sinan, I'm so inspired, but we should not for a minute forget that this is a really dire situation. Numbers tell stories. And, despite the fact, that since 2003, 90% of the Christians have left the country, that really should wake us up. And when I listen to Sinan, who I'm so inspired, but I'm also aware that the Western church and the Western nations really need to do something. because I was just in Erbil in November, and I talked to all the Christians I could, because I hadn't been there in a little while because of COVID, and the militias created problems for going out on the plains, and the Kurdish referendum. And I said to them, what do you think about the future of Christianity in Iraq, say 20 years from now? All of them said, without help from outside, we don't stand a chance. So it's really important that we be in this conversation. I want to show you a video, and you'll recognize the voice on this video. So if you have a question, does someone have a question?
I was clear then.
You were so good. I want to show you this video. Here, I'll just, we have to switch computers. Okay. So as Sinan said, we've been building small businesses, and the way my brilliant co-chair, Buck Blanchard, described the work we're doing with small businesses in Iraq, we're not giving anyone a fish, we're not teaching them how to fish, we're just restocking the pond. We're just giving people who already know how to do something, who already have maybe an entire family history of doing something, just giving them a little capital to get going again, and these are folks who really love to work. So don't sit down yet because there are questions, but I do want to show the video. Where is I may need some help with this. Here we go. One of the people that we met some time ago was a baker. She had, you can hear a little bit about her story. Her name is Wafa. Now, it's tough for all the Christians in Iraq, but it's really tough for women. And so one of the things we are really interested in doing is helping women start businesses. And you heard about, there was a grocery store, we have a sewing, we have a group who has begun a sewing business. Because these are folks that have skills, like serious skills, and they want to work. So this is Wafa, and again, notice the voice.
Meet Wafa Elia Banan, born in Mosul in 1980. Following the invasion of ISIS in 2014, the brutal harassment and persecution of Christians began. In 2015, Wafa fled with her husband and 2 children to Erbil in Kurdistan, joining over 125,000 other displaced Christians. Soon her husband was diagnosed with late-stage cancer and died. Swift met Wafa in 2022. We learned that she had started a small bakery but lacked the basic equipment to make of it a sustainable business. She had the skills, she just needed mixers, refrigerators, display cases, and ovens. So with a single small business development grant, Wafa bought equipment, vastly increased output, and established a profitable shop. Now she intends to expand her business as soon as funds permit it. Her daughter just started university this fall. I just want to thank all my supporters for the help and love they have given me. It saves me time and effort, and also with payroll. My family thanks you so much. This family is back on its feet, but the struggle continues. Wafa is only one of many hardworking Christians who want to remain in Iraq, their historic homeland. Now is the time to step up and provide friendship and assistance to the courageous, resilient people of faith still living in the ancient nursery of the Christian tradition. Wafa and countless others in Iraq just want a chance at a better life, and with your participation, are eager to work for it.
There are hundreds of Wafas. Hundreds of Wafas. So are there any questions for Sinan? Jamie, come on up.
What do the Iraqi Muslims think about Christ?
The question is, what do Iraqi Muslims think about Christ?
Normally, you would hear that from the Muslims, generally, from the normal people, but also from the leaders. They know that Christians and Christ are a peaceful people. I do believe that deep inside they know that at some point they have done big mistake toward Christianity in Iraq, because once the last, we pray that never happened, but once the last Christian leave Iraq, and the entire country will be chaotic, because Christians have been teaching in Iraq. Christians have been serving the country with all of the abilities. That's the environment of Christianity. I've spoken about the church. I've spoken about the stand with Iraqi Christians. And a lot of time we hear this comment, look at you guys what you are doing to the community, and look at our leaders, they mean the Muslim leaders, their leaders, what they are doing. So they have this mentality of Christians are a good people. And I'm not sure if I am responding to, are you asking that question from a theological perspective or just general perspective?
What is in Muslim history? I know that there there's knowledge of Jesus Christ, Son of God. They don't consider him Son of God?
Son of God, yeah. That's why I'm. So they have to recognize him as a prophet because, you know, that's the description according to a Muslim leader. We have the foundation where it's like a house. We have the foundation, which is the Old Testament, the Jews, and the Muslim have to admit it, because if they didn't, they are not admitting Islam as well. And we have the walls, which is the Christianity, and this according to their description. And then the top roof is the Islam. There's no top roof unless you have this walls and the foundation. They admit Christ, but they admit him as a prophet, not as a son of God. And that's between Christianity and what really is what we believe in it, and between them. But as we were able to explain it to them, they still having troubles on like the Trinity issue. That's even more, you know, like God and Son of God, and was God married? What we do is like, let's take the word Son of God and let's say the Word. So Christ was the Word of God. Do you have problem with that? No. Okay, then just take it. And then the Holy Spirit is like the Spirit of God. You have Spirit, you said, yes, that's the Spirit of God. And just to simplify it to them, because sometimes they understand it, but they don't want to understand it. So simplifying it to them, I think that helps them.
And if I could just add one thing, and I am no scholar at all, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but there are certain groups of Muslims that actually are waiting for the second coming of Christ to redeem the world. That's no joke. It's so paradoxical. The relationship between the Muhammad, the prophet, and the Christians of his time, you know, it was very complicated because there was a lot of violence going on. But there's this incredible fabric of connectedness that has just been forgotten by people. But on a more practical level, we really need to understand how crucial Christians have been to the life of Iraq. If the Christians leave Iraq, it is forget the theological part of it, it's a political disaster. The Christians have been a moderating political force in Iraq because there is an ethos of hard work, honesty. To tell you a factoid that is amazing. Saddam Hussein's, the only security guard he would allow to carry a pistol in his presence was a Christian. His chef was a Christian.
Yeah.
Because he trusted the Christians more than some of the Muslims around him, because it's just a different sort of a culture. I'm not knocking Muslims. I'm telling you this is just how it was in that time for Saddam Hussein. And so we have to understand it's a humanitarian, political, cultural, you name it, disaster if the Christians disappear from Iraq. Useful to know. Yeah, Chuck.
Thank you so much for being here. You talked about the idea of the community center, and I'm curious in the context of different Christian faiths within Iraq and how you would be looking at that. Is that like an interdenominational community center where like Chaldean Catholics and Syriac and Assyrian Christians would be gathering? how are kind of Christian relations among the different denominations in Iraq today?
Yeah. So what we are planning to do is something under the name of Stand with Iraqi Christians without specifying denomination. Those people who you saw some of them, their pictures, they are from a variety of denominations. They can be Chaldeans, they can be Syriac, and we are not doing it. There's nothing to do with their denomination. They still go to their churches and to their home churches, but that's kind of a community center, which is like you're going to like an engineering club where people can go and socialize. There is nothing to do with any specific denomination. And over the last 7-8 years, even by the time when I was, and that's my approach is, I believe that empowering the community is very important. Maybe not only the Christian community. If I have the ability to help even the Muslim community, I would love to. But that's our resources, and that's what we can do, is helping Christians regardless their denominations, and we are not taking them out of their churches. We are just helping them to have one more social space, one more opportunity to get training and to be able to work in a good places with a higher salaries. So that's the mentality that we are working. Just a comment about what you've said about waiting for Christ. Actually, those groups, they're waiting for someone, but it's not Christ. They're waiting for someone, they call him Al-Mahdi, which is the same mentality of Christianity, but they just created their own version of it.
Thank you. Can I make a quick little plug here? And I didn't put this in the introduction. And Graham, so glad you're here. I want to make a plug of what it is to be part of the Anglican Communion. You know, as Episcopal, part of this story is this amazing connection between the Episcopal Church and this wider Anglican worldwide communion of which we are a crucial part. There are Chaldeans, there are Assyrian Orthodox of the East, there are Armenian Orthodox, there's all of these other churches, and they are, I'm sorry to say, at each other's throats. I wish I could say that there was a sense of community among the Christians. I've got a story about during the ISIS that I can tell you, but I don't want to get off on that. But here's what during the ISIS that I can tell you, but I don't want to get off on that. But here's how great it is to be an Anglican. The reason we have been able to be successful over there, whatever we've been able to do, is that as Anglicans, we're not there to proselytize. We're not there to convert. We're not there to tell people who've been worshiping Christ for 2,000 years that they should be doing it our way because we have a different relationship with Jesus. We're just there to help. And they know it. This is part of why St. George's has been such a crucial interfaith center in Baghdad, because they know we don't have a theological dog in that fight. What we'd like to do is to help people live peacefully together, learn how to love each other, create a peaceful and a prosperous and workable Iraq. So thank you, Graham, for being here. We really love our Anglican brothers and sisters. Yes, I think you had your hand up first, Preston. Here.
Yasanan Tasharafna. My question is two parts. Where do the Christians worship, and what happened to the old historic churches? Do any of them exist anymore?
Where do Christian worship?
Mm-hmm. Are there old churches where they can go?
Or there's still churches.
Yeah. So after 2003, I would say, because of that decline in population, there was many churches in neighborhoods were closed because there is no more parishioners there. And that's mostly in Baghdad, but also in the southern part of Iraq. If you go to Basra, Mara, some areas that there are like really couple families after there used to be, for example, 200 families. So some of the churches are closed, but whenever there is, and wherever there is parishioners, they go to the church and worship at the church, and it is normal to do that. As for the historical sites of churches, yes, there are some old churches. For example, the monastery of St. Matthew that's from the 4th century. and it still exists up in the mountains, and you can go and, like, it's an amazing place, and I highly recommend it for people visiting Iraq to go stay the night there. There is a day in the year where, like, a lot of people go there, share food and having some fellowship. But over the years, Iraq, there's like always also new churches and new buildings, because Christianity was growing until really the last 5 decades in Iraq, and the numbers were increasing. So that's why there are like also new churches. That's the history goes back like to 100 years ago, like 50 years ago, 150 years ago. But there are also some very historical that goes back to beginning of Christianity.
Yeah, I would just add a little anecdote. So I went to go see a bunch of farmers on the Nineveh Plains. We had about 50 chicken farmers, because just as Sinan said, the idea is you talk to people and listen to them and say, what can we do to help you? And they said, well, I wore my clerical collar, and it was Sinan and I, and these farmers said, one of the things they said was, thank you so much for coming, because our priests don't come here. And one of the things that's happened, and I'm not knocking anybody, but a lot of money from the West has come in to help rebuild churches. But one of the things the farmers were saying is they're building all these beautiful churches again, but we can't make a living here. It would be great if some more of that money was going into economic development. We keep saying that it's wonderful to talk about Jesus and the saving grace of God, but if you can't eat, and you don't have a job, and you've got hungry children, imagine, we got these children, imagine your children can't eat, that's going to be pretty important to resolve first. Yes, sir. I think, Carolyn, did you?
That's okay.
Okay.
I mean, I'm a little encouraged, only because I came tonight thinking that the Christians were leaving because they were being persecuted. But,
That's something to talk about.
It seems like they're leaving because the country is so war-torn and really needs to be rebuilt.
Just to say, the biggest message that you get from Christians is they've been persecuted plenty, but right now they're ignored. There's no functional government in Iraq. They can't even take care of their Muslim majorities. And so the Christians are completely ignored. They have no services of any kind. That's why the West is so important. That's why
I would add a comment about that.
Please.
And the community in Iraq is a clan-based community. So if you have a problem, normally your uncle, your aunt, your extended family helps you on solving it. So when this general chaotic happening in Iraq, and it's impacting really everyone, but if I have an extended family, I am the majority of the country. That means I have more people to help me to survive. But when I have the extended family already immigrated because they were minorities, they couldn't survive in a place there, and now they are becoming less and less. It's not a direct persecution. It happened few incidents that the church was target, but also many mosques were a target as well. So it's not like targeting a church. Sometimes if you need to do something big on media, just go and target a mosque or target a church. It's the same way. So they are not persecuted directly because they are Christians and because their faith and all of that. No, there's a general chaos. And because they are minorities, they took the most impact.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for the discussion. Do you find that the Iraqi Christians are thirsting for more political power now? Or is it more, let's focus on agriculture, our businesses, and self-worth first? Thank you.
So the democracy that came in 2003, it was built based on the parliament, and the parliament, is formed by more than 300 members. And according to the communities that we have in Iraq, Christians and other minorities were given only 5 seats in the parliament. And if you want to do anything, you need at least 50% plus 1 of the parliament to vote for you. So really with politics, Christians have nothing to do, even we do have like 5 seats. But still 5 seats. Yes. But even more than that, those seats recently, since 2014, was taken by Christians who are Iranian-backed militia. And if you track the news currently, there's really a war going on media between, I consider it, he's a symbol of Christianity in Iraq. He's a Chaldean Cardinal, Sacco, a good friend for most of the, at least for our churches and some of the other denominations. And then he is trying to resist that. And as a result of that, those Iranian-backed Christian militias are attacking him. So really Christians is, like their opportunity in politics is like, is not something like reliable as much as impacting people lives. And I bet on the people life, not on the politics. I think the politics would be fixed as part of the general politics in Iraq. So once, we are the second largest reserve, we own the second largest reserved oil in the world. We are the fifth exporter for the oil in the world. And still, we do have a very rich politician and a lot of people under the poverty line who cannot maintain 25 pairs of sheep. And that's not because we don't have resources, but because of the mismanagement, because of the corruption that's going on in the country. I think politically, once that has been solved, I think the Christian situation politically would be solved as well.
Yes. And I am conscious of time. I just want to be sure that folks get to ask their question.
Hey, good evening. So you talked about clans and tribes. Tonight, I'm going to tell you, you just got an Irish-Italian cousin that you don't know about, but I stand with you. I'm here tonight with a fellow veteran, and we were in your country, and we're loyal to you guys. We're loyal to the children of your country. And I think you are living something that I myself experienced. First, you do what is necessary. Then you do what is possible. And soon you're doing the impossible, and you are. So whatever you need, we're here, and welcome to the clan, okay?
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really a great moral support for us, and that's needed when we feel that we are not forgotten and we are not alone fighting in this like chaotic country. So I really appreciate these words.
Please don't be like, driving home in your car and thinking, I wish I'd asked that question. Is there anything else you would like to know? Yes, ma'am.
Is the Christianity based on clan-based, or are there individuals that come from Islam background as an individual? I know that's difficult for somebody to convert out of Islam. But do you see that, is it mostly just family, tribe, clan that claims to be Christian?
So it's historical, and those communities, they were not clan-based communities. So when Christianity came, they were not built that way. In addition to the Christian values. So let me explain a little bit what does it mean to be a clan-based. Clan-based mean that if we are brothers, I will defend you whatever you do, even if you are wrong. I will support you. Well, that's totally against Christian value. I mean, it couldn't fit with the Christianity. And that's why Christians doesn't have clans. Even though there is a name, but that doesn't mean they will be acting like that. As for the converts, I would mention that, and we are trying to keep that low profile, because I think every month I meet 2 to 3 people, and if I have more time, if I make it more public, I'll meet much more of those people. Who comes and wanted to convert to Christianity. But I have to mention that we are living in Iraq where there is no religious freedom. And there is a freedom of worship. If you are a Christian, you are free to worship in a Christian way. But if you want to change, you are allowed to change from Christianity to Islam, but you are not allowed the other way. Well, You're living in Iraq where there's no religious freedom, and there's a chaotic situation, politically, security, economy. The best case scenario to have, to apply an asylum to the West is that I'm converted, and I'm persecuted, so I need a case, immigration case. That's why what I always tell those people. And last month, just you know Joe, he was one of my American friends was in Iraq, and it happened during that time. I was talking to one of those. To an extent, I was like, why do you want to convert to Christianity? And we had like 3 hours talking. At the end, he knows me as someone who works for a charity. He doesn't know that I'm a Christian. I'm a priest assistant at the church, and that happened in the north. He asked me, "Are you Muslim? Because you are pushing me back to Islam." And I said, "No, I'm not pushing you back to Islam. But Christianity is something in the heart. It's not about, like just going loud. We all know if you go loud to your parents what will happen and what may happen. At the time, you can grow in your faith, but within your heart." They need a lot of tests to be done to them, a lot of talking, and as a church, it's not the best way to convert them. Otherwise, if the government find out, they will they will close the church the same way. So there are cases, yes, there are, I would say the minorities are real cases, the majority are not real, and it's been like spreading out the country that it's good asylum case to build it, like I'm converted and I need to leave. So they need really a lot of tests, they need wisdom to deal with them. But there are some of them. Do I have time? I just want to...
Please.
Okay.
Give them what you've got to give them.
I remember talking to someone which we helped in 2016. He was originally from Mosul. He used to have two sons, Mustafa and Abdullah. And I remember we met up in Erbil in a very small room, and he told me, I was just asking why you want to convert. And he told me, I was in Mosul when ISIS attacked, and I stayed there. I lived there under ISIS. He's Muslim. And he said one afternoon, they brought two people, and I was like, what are they going to do to them? And they said they will be punished. And then those ISIS members came. They beat one of those two, and they killed the other. They slaughtered the other one. And he asked, what did they do for that kind of punishment? They told him, the one that was beaten, he cursed God. So they brought him and punished him. The one that was killed, he cursed the prophet. So they slaughtered him. So he was like, it led to a thinking, is the prophet more important than God? To get like a more violent punishment. And he started reviewing his faith because of just that incident. Actually, with all of the bad things that ISIS did, but it led to some of those just to review what do they believe in. Or if they wanted...
I really want to respect your time. Before I let you go, I want to give you because something in your mind may be, well, what can we do? And that is the question, and that's part of what Fayez, who was asleep because we've had him working so hard, the priest at the church, he's been on this tour, he's sleeping now, and Sinan is with us, is that there are, in your pew you've got a piece of paper. And on that piece of paper, there are two different sides. One is St. George's in Baghdad. St. George's in Baghdad is against the ropes because they've lost a lot of their funding because of COVID and other things. So if you have a heart for St. George's and you can find out all the information you want about the ministries, about how it works, talking to me or Sinan online on our website, or you can call us. On the other side is a barcode for Stand with Iraqi Christians. Stand with Iraqi Christians has budgeted $100,000 to start new farms and businesses this year, and we need you to help us do that. And so I ask for you to dig deep, and if you're stirred by this, please be generous, because the way, and I don't mean to get all theological on you, but the way that I think about this and what has kept me going for 8 years is that I'm really clear that if Christians disappear from Iraq, and I've already said it's a disaster on every level. We know monocultures don't work. We know that they become hotbeds for extremism and violence, so it's important to keep Christians there for a whole bunch of reasons. But as followers of Jesus, as members of a church, the way I think of this is, if Christians disappear from Iraq, it is a wound on the body of Christ we just simply cannot wipe away. And we have a chance to do something now. I don't want to be one of those people, and maybe you feel this way, that 20, 30 years from now, when we talk about what used to be the Christian presence in Iraq is gone, you think, geez, why didn't we do something when we had the chance? Well, we do, and the time is now. So you've got that paper in front of you. If you have any questions, go to our website, talk to me, talk to Joe Plummer, who's been an awesome supporter of us and other people in this wonderful community. But I want to leave you on an amazingly high note. There's stories about a whole bunch of things, but one of them is a friendship that Sinan and I have had. I'm going to get all choked up. So Fayez Gergis is the first and only ordained Iraqi Anglican priest. In this process, you were born Chaldean? Yep. And then worked for a missionary church? And then he runs into this Episcopal priest who connects him with an Anglican priest. Sinan is now in the ordination process and the discernment process to become the second Iraqi national ordained into the Anglican Church. And can we give it up for Sinan? So anyway, I just can't thank you all enough. Just let this be the beginning of a conversation, of a friendship. We keep saying to people, I know I thought this in the beginning is like, oh my gosh, you can't go to Iraq. It's this horrible, violent place where you're going to get hurt. Not so. It is a wonderful country. I could tell you story after story about how hospitable, how wonderful. Iraqis have changed my understanding of what it is to be a human being and a Christian because of the way they act toward me given all that they've been through. So if you want to go, let us know because we will be going. So anyway, thank you all so much. God bless you all, and see you around. Thanks, brother.